This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network, Tillamook County Perimeter, the Perimeter Broadcast. If you are hearing this transmission, emergency conditions are ongoing. A radio signal first logged in November 1917 is being received tonight, live, on its original wartime frequency. It is not Morse. It is not any code on file. 3 separate listening posts have now stopped calling a recording. By the time this broadcast ends, the advisory attached to it will no longer be historical. Do not turn off your radio. I want to give you one picture before we go any further. On Highway 101, just south of the county line, there's a small unmanned relay shack that most of you have driven past 1,000 times without noticing. A green metal box behind a chain link fence, 1 antenna, 1 blinking red bulb. As of about an hour ago, that bulb is no longer blinking. It is on. It is steady. It has been steady for the entire duration of the signal we are about to describe. Officials at this hour are calling the incoming transmission a harmonic artifact. The reports we are receiving from the coast are inconsistent enough that the desk is treating it seriously. It is now 9:14 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I am going to walk you carefully through what has been verified in the last 90 minutes, because the language on this is already moving, and I would rather you hear from us as it moves in after. At 7:41 p.m. this evening, a licensed amateur radio operator on the north side of Tillamook Bay logged an unmodulated tone on a frequency he described as quiet since the First World War. I want to be careful with that wording. He did not mean the frequency has been in use since the First World War. He meant that the specific band segment he was monitoring has, in his logbook, been dead since the last confirmed wartime transmission on it, a shipboard signal from November 1917, filed under a designation I am not going to read on air because we have not yet confirmed the file, is what he says it is. What he logged tonight was not that 1917 signal returning. What he logged was something answering on the same frequency. I want to be precise about what that means. He did not receive Morse. He received a pattern modulation, his words. That is not any of the wartime codes, not any of the post-war codes, not any of the standard maritime or aviation identifiers, and not, to his knowledge, any signal produced by a living transmitter he can locate on a map. He described it to a coastal coordination desk as shaped like speech, but not speech. That is a direct paraphrase. I am passing it along as received. The coordination desk has, as of about 20 minutes ago, opened a verification line. That is the first time I have heard official language move in that direction on a signals matter in this county. In the years I have been sitting at this desk. It is now 9:22 p.m. Pacific. I want to describe what has actually been confirmed, and I want to separate it clearly from what is still being reviewed. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network, and we are continuing to relay only verified information, confirmed as of this update. A signal is being received on the Oregon coast, on a frequency historically associated with a single wartime transmission in November of 1917. The signal is continuous. It has been continuous, without interruption, for roughly 1 hour and 43 minutes. It is not Morse. It is not identified. A regional communications office has logged it. A university signals lab south of the coast has logged it. A merchant vessel roughly 40 nautical miles offshore has independently logged it. Not confirmed. And I want to be clear about this. The origin, the direction of arrival, the transmitter, whether the signal is currently being generated or whether, and this is language I am reading directly from the coordination desk's initial framing. It is being returned. That word, returned, is not one I would have chosen. I am passing along as received. A caller from the Garibaldi Harbor District reports that a marine radio in a moored fishing boat, powered off at the breaker, began producing a low tone at approximately 7:44 p.m. The caller states the radio's power lamp remained dark. The tone, he says, continued for several minutes and then resolved into what he described as a rhythm. He did not describe it as Morse. He was specific about that. We cannot confirm this account. The same account is repeating from 2 other slips in the same harbor. It is now 9:31 p.m. Pacific. I want to move to the second confirmed institutional report of the evening, because it is the one that changed the desk's posture from monitoring to active. At 8:02 p.m. this evening, a small signals laboratory affiliated with Coastal University logged the same continuous transmission on their long-wave receiver on the same historical frequency with, and this is a phrase used in their initial notice to the coordination desk, a matched envelope. I need to be precise about what that means. They are saying the shape of the signal they are receiving tonight is the same shape as an archive recording of the 1917 transmission held in their collection, not the content. The envelope, the rise, the fall, the spacing of the pulses that are not Morse. The lab has been careful in its wording. Their first internal note, which was read to us over the coordination line, uses a phrase consistent with the archived reference. Their second note, issued approximately 40 minutes later, uses a phrase identical to the archived reference within measurement tolerance. That is the first time I have heard institutional language tighten in that direction tonight, and I want you to notice it, because we're going to hear it tighten again. Officials at this hour are still using the word artifact. They are still using the word harmonic. A regional emergency management office has issued no advisory. A National Weather Service bulletin issued at 9 p.m. makes no reference to the signal. There is, as of this moment, no public statement from any agency naming what is being received. I am telling you what the desk has verified. I am telling you what the desk is hearing on its coordination line. I am not telling you what it is. I do not know what it is. It is now 9:38 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. Two more items before I hand back to the timestamp. A verified report from a coastal coordination desk indicates that the signal, as received at 3 independent stations along the Oregon coastline, is not attenuating with distance in the way a terrestrial transmitter signal would. That is their phrasing. I am passing it along as received. They have not yet said what that implies. They have said only that the standard triangulation methods have not, so far, produced a source location. They expect an updated figure within the hour. We will relay it when it arrives. And a caller from a residence on the ridge above the harbor reports that an old cathedral-style radio in her front room, which she describes as inherited and non-functional for decades, began emitting a low, steady tone at approximately 7:45 p.m. She states the radio is not plugged in. She states she has checked the outlet. She states the tone is still audible from the hallway as she is speaking to us. We cannot confirm this account. The desk has logged 3 similar accounts from separate households along the same ridge in the last 20 minutes. I want to be careful with the pattern before I name it. I am not naming it yet. It is now 9:46 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network, and we are continuing to relay verified information as it is confirmed to us. I want to close this first hour by reading back the language officials are currently using, so you can hear it alongside what the desk is actually receiving. The Regional Communications Office is calling the signal a harmonic artifact of undetermined origin. The Coastal Coordination Desk is calling it an unidentified continuous transmission on a legacy frequency. The University Lab is calling it, in its most recent note, a return signature. 3 different phrasings for the same phenomenon within a single hour. I am not going to tell you which one is right. I am going to tell you which one the desk is watching. We are watching the word returned. We are watching to see whether it stays in institutional language or whether it is walked back in the next bulletin. That bulletin is expected at 10 p.m. A caller from a farmhouse near the county line reports that her grandfather's shortwave set, stored in a barn since his death in 1974, is producing a sound she describes as someone trying to remember how to speak. I want to repeat that this is an unverified caller count. I want to also note that it is the 4th such account tonight involving a receiver that, by every ordinary measure, should not be receiving anything. The desk expects the next coordination call at the top of the hour. We will re-sign on with it. Until then, if you are hearing this transmission on a set you did not turn on tonight, the desk would like you to note the time. It is now 9:53 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to broadcast. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network, Tillamook County Perimeter. The perimeter broadcast continues. If you are hearing this transmission, emergency conditions are ongoing. It is now 10:04 p.m. Pacific. The 10 p.m. coordination call has come and gone, and I want to walk you through a change in it because something did. The Regional Communications Office, which at 9 p.m. was calling the incoming transmission a harmonic artifact of undetermined origin, is, as of the top of the hour, calling it an unresolved continuous emission on legacy band. Under active review, I want to be precise about what has moved in that phrasing. The word artifact is gone. The word harmonic is gone. What has replaced them is a longer, more careful sentence that does not commit to a cause. That is the second time tonight I have heard institutional language tighten around this signal, and I want you to notice it, because the pattern the desk was watching for at the end of the last hour is the pattern that is now occurring. Officials are not calling a recording. They are calling an emission. That is a different word. An artifact is something left behind. An emission is something currently being produced. I am passing that shift along as received, and I am telling you the desk considers it significant. The signal, as of this update, has been continuous for 2 hours and 23 minutes. It has not attenuated. It has not shifted frequency. It has not. To the knowledge of any listening post now reporting to the coordination desk, repeated. That last item is the one I want to sit with for a moment. A tone can be continuous. A pattern can repeat. What is being received tonight is continuous and does not repeat. It has not, in more than 2 hours, produced the same sequence twice. That is not, I am told, characteristic of any archive signal on file, including the 1917 reference the University Lab is using for comparison. It is now 10:09 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I want to give you the second institutional report because it has come in during the last 12 minutes, and it is the reason the coordination desk moved its language. A coastal coordination desk reports that at approximately 9:51 p.m., a technician performing a routine correction on one of the affected receivers, a standard recalibration intended to filter out what was still, at that hour, being described as an artifact, completed the correction successfully. The receiver was, by every diagnostic available to the technician, clean. He powered it back up. The signal was still present. He performed the correction a second time. The signal was still present. He isolated the receiver from its antenna. The signal was still present. I want to be careful with that last sentence. I am reading from the coordination desk's own summary. The receiver, disconnected from its antenna, continued to receive. The technician's note, which was read to us over the coordination line, uses a phrase the correction did not take. That is the language now moving through the institutional channels tonight. The correction did not take. This is the first verified instance in which the signal has been shown to persist after standard local remediation. It is not, I want to stress, an instance of the signal spreading. It is an instance of the signal not being removable from a receiver already carrying it. Those are different things. The desk is treating them as different things. It is now 10:16 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. And we are continuing to relay verified information. A caller from a residence on the ridge above the harbor. A different caller than the one from the last hour. I want to be clear about that. We are not receiving the same caller twice. Reports that a portable transistor radio in her kitchen has, in the last 20 minutes, begun producing the same tone as her cathedral set in the front room. She states the transistor was tuned to a distant AM station, carrying a baseball broadcast at the time. The baseball broadcast, she says, is still audible underneath the tone, but faintly, as if it were the one intruding. Her phrase, I am passing along as received. We cannot confirm this account. It is the 7th such account from the ridge tonight. The desk is beginning to see a shape in the caller reports that I do not want to name yet, because naming it before officials do is precisely the thing the station does not do. But I want to describe the shape so that you can hear it as we hear it. The shape is this. Older receivers reported the signal first. Newer receivers are reporting it now. Receivers that were powered off are reporting it. Receivers that were tuned to unrelated stations are reporting it underneath the station they were tuned to. In every case, The signal is the same continuous, non-repeating pattern the coastal listening post logged at 7:41 p.m. It is now 10:23 p.m. Pacific. I want to move to a verified report from a National Signals laboratory because it arrived on our line approximately 8 minutes ago, and it is, in the desk's judgment, the most significant institutional statement of the night so far. The laboratory, which had been asked earlier this evening to review the archived 1917 reference against tonight's live capture, has issued a preliminary note. The note, in its entirety as it was read to us, is 3 sentences long. I am going to read the paraphrase I was given, because the exact wording has not yet been cleared for on-air use. The paraphrase is this: the 1917 reference and tonight's live capture are not merely similar in envelope, they are, when aligned in time, complementary. The 1917 signal, when played against tonight's signal, does not overlap it, it fits into it. I want to be careful with that language, because I do not fully understand it, and I would rather tell you I do not understand it than pretend I do. The laboratory is not saying the signals are the same. The laboratory is saying the 1917 transmission and tonight's transmission, when placed together, form a single longer pattern. The 1917 signal is, in their phrasing, the first half. Tonight's signal is, in their phrasing, the second half. I am passing that along as received. The desk has asked for clarification. The laboratory has said clarification will not be available until the pattern completes. It is now 10:31 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I want to give you 2 more items before we move on, because they arrive within a minute of each other and the desk considers them related. A verified report from a coastal coordination desk indicates that at 10:14 p.m., a listening post in Northern California independently logged the same signal, on the same frequency, with the same non-repeating pattern. The listening post is approximately 600 miles south of the nearest Oregon post reporting tonight. The signal at both posts arrive at the same amplitude. That is the phrase used. I want to be precise about what that means. A signal traveling from a single transmitter to 2 receivers 600 miles apart should not arrive at both receivers at the same strength. It does. The coordination desk has not yet issued language on the implication. They have said only that the standard direction finding methods are, in their phrase, not resolving. And a caller from a farmhouse near the county line. The same farmhouse we heard from at the end of the last hour, the one with the grandfather's shortwave in the barn, reports a second radio in the house. A modern kitchen unit purchased last year has, in the last 10 minutes, begun producing the same sound as the shortwave. She states she can hear the 2 sets from the yard, playing what she describes as the same not voice offset by a beat. Her phrase: we cannot confirm the account. The desk has logged the time. It is now 10:38 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to broadcast, and we are continuing to watch the language. I want to close this second hour of coverage with a verified institutional report that came in on the coordination line approximately 3 minutes ago, and I want to preface it with a small correction. Earlier this evening, I described the incoming transmission as being received on the Oregon coast. That language has changed in the last few minutes. I need to correct it now. A regional communications office reports that as of the 10:30 p.m. coordination update, the signal is confirmed as being received on receivers currently active in the states of Oregon, Washington, California, Nevada, Idaho, and, in the last 8 minutes, Montana and British Columbia. The office has not yet issued language on the geographic implication. They have said only that the perimeter confirmed reception is, in their phrase, expanding without a corresponding increase in source signal strength. I am passing that along as received. The desk considers the phrase significant. A signal that is heard in more places without becoming louder is not a signal that is spreading outward from a point. It is a signal that is arriving from everywhere. It is now 10:44 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I want to give you one more caller summary, and then I want to sit with a timestamp for a moment before we move into the next segment of coverage. A caller from a residence in an inland valley, not on the coast, not on the ridge, an interior farmhouse roughly 2 hours drive from a nearest confirmed listening post. reports that a portable radio on her kitchen counter, which she states is currently switched off, is producing a tone. She states she can see the tuning dial. She states no light is on behind it. She states the tone is quiet but present, and that it has been present for approximately 15 minutes. She states her husband, who is a licensed operator and who is on the line with her, confirms the receiver is not drawing power. We cannot confirm the account. It is the first such report we have received from an inland location tonight. The desk has logged the time. The desk is watching the pattern. Officials are still calling this an unresolved continuous emission. They are still calling it under active review. I want you to hear that language alongside the fact I have just relayed to you, because the language is not yet catching up to the fact. That is not, I want to be clear, an accusation. That is a description. Institutional language is careful. It moves at the speed it is allowed to move. The desk is telling you where it is now, so you can hear where it goes next. It is now 10:51 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to relay verified information as it is confirmed to us. Do not turn off your radio. I want to open this next segment with a verified institutional report because a pattern that has been building over the last 3 hours has, in the last 11 minutes, crossed the boundary the desk has been watching for since the beginning of the night. At 10:47 p.m. Pacific, a coordination line linking listening posts on 3 continents issued a joint note. I want to be careful with the phrasing, because it is the first time tonight I've heard the phrase used, and I do not want to introduce it and then walk it away from you. The joint note, in the paraphrase read to us, states that the incoming transmission, the continuous, non-repeating, non-attenuating signal first logged in Tillamook County at 7:41 p.m., is now confirmed as being received simultaneously at listening posts in North America and Western Europe, in the coastal ports of Southern Africa, and at 2 research stations in the Southern Pacific. I want to be precise about what simultaneously means in that sentence. It does not mean the signal is arriving at those posts within a small window of one another. It means the signal is arriving at all of those posts at the same instant. There is no propagation delay between them. That is not. The coordination note states, characteristic of any known transmission mechanism. The joint note does not, I want to stress, offer an explanation. It offers a status. The status is matching reports, converging pattern, no source located. That is the phrase now moving through the international coordination channel. Matching reports, converging pattern, no source located. It is now 10:58 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I want to give you the caller summary that arrived at almost the same minute, because the desk considers the 2 items related, and I want you to hear them together while they are still fresh. A caller from a residence on the ridge above the harbor, one of the original ridge callers from earlier this evening, reports that the tone in her front room, which had been continuous since roughly 7:45 p.m., changed shape at 10:47 p.m. Pacific. She was specific about the time. She states the tone did not become louder. It did not become quieter. It became, in her word, answered. She states there is now a second layer underneath the first, at a slightly different pitch, and that the 2 layers are, in her phrase, talking around each other. We cannot confirm the account. The desk has logged 4 additional call reports describing a change at the same minute, from 4 separate locations along the coast. It is the first time tonight the caller reports had converged on a specific timestamp without prompting. That is not, I want to stress, a claim about what is happening. That is a description of the pattern the desk is now seeing in the reports it is receiving. It is now 11:04 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to broadcast. I want to give you the next verified institutional report, because it landed on a coordination line at 11:06 p.m., and it is the first time tonight 2 agencies have used substantively different language for the same event at the same timestamp. The desk considers a divergence worth reading to you directly, because the shape of it tells you something about how the institutional channel is tightening. At the 11 p.m. cross-agency check-in, the Regional Communications Office described the 10:47 p.m. event, the moment the ridge call is experienced as answered, as a phase transition in the received emission consistent with the addition of a second modulation layer. The Coastal Coordination Desk at the same check-in described the same event as a bifurcation of the carrier into two independent components of comparable amplitude. I want to be careful with what has just been said. Those are not the same sentence. The communications office is treating the second layer as a modulation added to a single signal. The coordination desk is treating the second layer as a second signal running alongside the first. That is a meaningful difference. The two offices did not, on the check-in call, reconcile it. They logged both descriptions and moved to the next item. The desk considers that non-reconciliation itself a data point, and I am relaying it to you as one. It is now 11:11 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. A caller from a residence on a ridge above the harbor. A third caller from the ridge, not one we have heard from before tonight, reports that in the last 20 minutes, several households along her road have, in her phrase, come out onto their porches with their radios. She states the neighbors are not gathered in one place. She states each household is standing on its own porch. She states each porch is a radio set out on the railing or on a chair or on the step, and that each set is producing the tone. She states people are not speaking to one another about it. She states people are turning their sets in the direction of the next porch, and then in the direction of their own front door, and then back. And that from her porch she can hear, in her phrase, a walking pattern moving up the ridge. We cannot confirm the account. The desk has logged the time. It is the first call or report tonight in which the public behavior around the phenomenon has itself become the subject of the report. The desk is going to watch for that shape from other locations. And I am telling you so that you know what the desk is watching for. It is now 11:18 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. I want to move to the item that has, in the last few minutes, changed the internal posture of the station. I am going to describe it plainly because it concerns this broadcast directly, and I would rather you hear from us than notice it yourselves and wonder why we did not say anything. At 11:29 p.m. Pacific, the engineer on duty at this station observed, on the internal monitoring rack, a low secondary tone present on the KQWL 1620 AM carrier. The tone is not part of our broadcast. It is not being introduced by anything in the studio. The engineer performed the standard checks. The tone is present on the carrier at the transmitter. It is present on the carrier at the tower. It is present at reduced amplitude in the room I am speaking to you from right now. The engineer has confirmed to the desk that the tone matches a continuous, non-repeating pattern being received tonight on the legacy wartime frequency. I want to be careful with that. I am not saying our station is transmitting the signal. I am saying the signal is now present on our carrier alongside our own transmission. The engineer's note to the desk uses a phrase, riding underneath. The signal is riding underneath our broadcast. It has been doing so by the engineer's log for approximately 14 minutes. It is now 11:36 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Coal Harbor Emergency Relay Network. If you are listening to the station tonight, you are, without any action of ours, also listening to the other thing. A verified operational report came in on the coordination line at 11:38 p.m. And I want to give it to you next because the desk considers it directly related to what I've just described. A coastal coordination desk reports that in the last 20 minutes, similar carrier-level intrusions have been observed on the transmitters of 11 other AM broadcast stations along the western coast of North America, at long-wave stations in Western Europe, and at 3 shortwave relay facilities on other continents. The desk's phrase as read to us, the emission is present on the outbound carriers of active broadcast stations, without those stations transmitting it. I want to read that sentence back to myself carefully. The signal is arriving on the outbound side of transmitters. It is not being received by them and rebroadcast. It is on the wave they are already sending out. I do not know what that means. The coordination desk has said, in the same note, that they do not know what it means either. They have said only that the word they were using at 10 p.m. emission is, as of 11:30 p.m., being replaced in their working language by the word carrier co-occupancy. I want you to hear the shape of that phrase. It does not describe a source. It describes a state. It is now 11:44 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I want to give you the next verified institutional report. because it is the first footage review of the night, and I want you to have the exact shape of it in your ear before the desk paraphrases anything further. At 11:41 p.m. Pacific, the National Signals Laboratory issued a review note on the earliest listening post capture of tonight's signal. The 7:41 p.m. Tillamook Bay recording made by the amateur operator, which was uploaded to the coordination channel at approximately 9:30 p.m. and has been in laboratory review since. The note, as read to us on the line, states that the earliest capture, when compared frame by frame against a live signal being received at the same laboratory at 11:30 p.m., is missing one component. The paraphrase used is, the second capture carries a feature the first does not. The feature is described in the note only as a low-order structural element consistent with a directional bias. I want to be careful with that phrase. The laboratory is saying that the signal received at 7:41 p.m. did not have a direction. The signal being received at 11:30 p.m. does. The signal has, in the laboratory's phrasing, acquired a bias in the intervening hours. They have not said toward what. They have said only that the earliest capture is now, in their assessment, a cleaner reference than the live signal, because a live signal has, in their phrase, picked something up. It is now 11:48 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. I want to give you one more call or summary before the top of the hour, because it arrived from a location the desk did not expect, and it clarifies something about the shape of the pattern. A caller from a small hospital administrative office in an inland town, well east of the coast, well east of any confirmed listening post from earlier tonight, reports that the standard overhead paging system in one of their corridors began producing a low continuous tone at approximately 11:15 p.m. Pacific. The system is a closed intercom loop. It is not a radio receiver. It does not, in its ordinary operation, receive anything. It receives only the input from the handsets on the wall. The caller states the handsets are on their cradles. The caller states no one is speaking into them. The caller states the tone has been continuous at low volume for the last 20 minutes, and that it has begun to be joined in the last 5 minutes by what she described as the second layer. The same phrase used by the Ridge call more than an hour ago, describing the change at 10:47 p.m. We cannot confirm the account. The desk considers a report significant not because it is unverified, but because a closed intercom loop is not, by any conventional understanding, a receiver of the phenomenon we have been describing tonight. The desk is going to stop at this update using the word receiver for the objects producing the tone. The desk is going to start using the phrase, the objects producing the tone. I want you to notice that shift because it is a shift in our language, not in the language of officials. And I want to be honest with you about when the desk itself moves. It is now 11:55 p.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM, Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to broadcast, and the broadcast, as of this hour, is one of the objects producing the tone. I want to open the midnight hour with a verified institutional advisory, because it is the first advisory of the night that carries a restrictive component. And I want you to have the exact shape of it in your ear before the desk paraphrases anything further. At 11:58 p.m. Pacific, a regional emergency management office issued a public guidance note. The paraphrase, as read to us on the line, members of the public in the affected regions are advised that active broadcast receivers, including radio, marine radio, aviation receivers, and certain closed-loop intercom systems, may, at this time, present a continuous non-attenuating tone that cannot be corrected by ordinary means. The note advises that attempting to correct the tone locally, recalibration, retuning, or disconnection from antenna will not, in current experience, remove it. The note advises further that receivers not currently producing the tone should not, as a precaution, be introduced into service in the affected regions until further guidance is issued. I want to be careful with the last part, because it is the piece I have not heard institutional language used tonight, until now. The advisory is telling people not to turn on radios that are currently off. It is telling them not to introduce new receivers. It is telling them, in bureaucratic language, that the safest posture is to leave things as they are. It is not calling the signal harmful. It is not calling it harmless either. That word has, at some point in the last several hours, left the official vocabulary. It is now 12:04 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 AM. A verified report from a National Signals laboratory arrived on our line at 12:01 a.m., and I want to get to you next because it walks the desk's earlier reporting a small but important distance further. I want to be careful with the phrasing. The laboratory's earlier note from the 10:30 p.m. hour described the 1917 reference and tonight's live capture as complementary halves of a single longer pattern. The follow-up note at 11:18 p.m. ruled out a delayed continuation explanation for the second half. The new note at 12:01 a.m. states that the pattern, as it continued to develop over the intervening hours, does not appear to be approaching completion. It is not, in the laboratory's phrasing, resolving toward an endpoint. It is elaborating. It is adding structure. It is, in the phrase used, still writing. I am passing that along as received. The desk does not know what to do with that phrase yet. It is now 12:11 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to relay verified information as it is confirmed to us. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. Tillamook County Perimeter. The perimeter broadcast continues. If you are hearing this transmission, emergency conditions are ongoing. It is now 12:19 a.m. Pacific. I want to walk you through the item that arrived on the coordination line at 12:14 a.m. because it is the first verified report of the night in which a field unit assigned to observe the phenomenon has, in the coordination desk's own phrasing, ceased returning. A regional communications office reports that a two-person field team dispatched at approximately 10:40 p.m. Pacific to a listening post on the northern jetty for the purpose of on-site instrumentation was in continuous contact with the coordination desk on a hardline circuit until 12:07 a.m. At 12:07 a.m., the hardline circuit did not disconnect. It did not go quiet. According to the coordination desk's log, the circuit began at that minute to carry the same continuous non-repeating tone that has been the subject of tonight's broadcast at a volume that made further exchange with the field team impractical. The field team has not, since that time, been reached by any means. The coordination desk has been careful with its language. They are not, at this hour, calling the team missing. They are calling the team not currently addressable. I am passing that along as received. It is now 12:24 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. I want to be honest with you about something in the room I am speaking to you from. The engineer's monitoring rack, which at 11:29 p.m. showed a low secondary tone, riding underneath the KQWL carrier, is at this hour showing that tone at approximately the same amplitude as the carrier itself. The two signals are, in the engineer's phrase, matched. I do not know what will happen to this broadcast if the balance continues to shift. I am telling you that so you understand what you are hearing, if what you are hearing later in this broadcast begins to change. The desk intends to continue relaying verified information for as long as the desk is one of the two things you can hear. It is now 12:31 a.m. Pacific. A verified operational report from a regional maritime coordination desk arrived on our line at 12:29 a.m. And I want to give it to you next because it is the first report of the night in which the phenomenon has been observed on a communication system that is neither broadcast nor closed intercom. The maritime desk reports that in the last 90 minutes, dedicated ship-to-shore hardline channels serving 3 commercial fishing fleets along the western coast of North America have, at both terminals, developed the same continuous tone underneath ordinary radio traffic. The desk is careful to distinguish these channels from the shipboard marine radios that were reporting earlier in the evening. The ship-to-shore hardlines in question are not radios. They are wired channels that terminate at a shore station and at a corresponding shipboard handset, with a physical cable running between them. In 2 of the 3 cases, the cable in question is a submarine cable laid in the last decade. The tone is present at both terminals of the hardline. The maritime desk summary note uses the phrase, "the wire is carrying it." I want to sit with that phrase for a moment. The signal is now, by this account, present on wired infrastructure that has no antenna and no exposure to the open air between its 2 endpoints. The maritime desk has said, in the same note, that they are no longer characterizing the phenomenon as a signal. They are characterizing it as a condition of the channel. That is the phrase they're using at the top of every ship-to-shore report issued since 12 a.m. It is now 12:38 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. A verified institutional report from a coastal coordination desk indicates that at 12:36 a.m. Pacific, the working language across the international coordination channel shifted again. The phrase carrier co-occupancy, which entered the channel at 11:30 p.m., has been replaced. The replacement phrase as read to us: primary carrier, secondary carrier, both present. I want you to hear the shape of that. The signal we've been describing tonight is no longer being treated by the coordination channel as an intrusion on our carriers. It is being treated as a second carrier of the same order as ours, occupying the same space. The coordination note does not designate which of the two is primary. Institutional language has, in the same update, stopped using the word our for the outbound signals of the affected broadcasters. That is the fourth time tonight I have heard institutional language tighten around this phenomenon, and it is the first time it is tightened by taking a word away rather than adding one. It is now 12:44 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. A caller from a residence on the ridge above the harbor. The same original ridge caller who described the tone becoming answered at 10:47 p.m. reports that in the last 40 minutes, the two layers of the tone in her front room have, in her phrase, stopped talking around each other and begun, in her phrase, moving in the same direction. She states she does not know how to describe it more precisely. She states the tones are no longer offset. She states they are, as of this hour, walking together. She states her cathedral radio and her transistor set are producing the sound at the same volume, and that when she listens from the hallway, she cannot distinguish which set is the source of which layer. We cannot confirm the account. The desk has logged 19 similar caller reports along the coast in the last hour, all describing convergence of the two layers of the tone into a single walking pattern. 19 is the number the desk is now watching, because at 11 p.m. it was 0. It is now 12:50 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. I want to give you the next verified institutional report, because it landed on a coordination line at 12:52 a.m., and it comes from a sector we have not yet heard from tonight, and the desk considers the timing meaningful. A regional aviation coordination office reports that at approximately 10:55 p.m. Pacific, pilots of 3 separate commercial aircraft, one over the Eastern Pacific, one over the interior of the continent, and one over the North Atlantic, independently reported the same continuous, non-repeating tone bleeding into their cockpit communication receivers. The tone did not interrupt their communications. It did not block them. It sat, in the phrase used in the coordination note, underneath them, the pilots were able to complete their radio traffic. The tone remained present the entire time. The office's follow-up note, issued at 12:48 a.m., extends that report. In the last 2 hours, the tone has been reported on active operational channels of approximately 60 commercial aircraft across 4 flight information regions. The pilots are, in every case, able to complete their radio traffic. The tone is, in every case, present underneath. The aviation office has issued no restriction on flight operations. The office's note ends with a single sentence I want to read to you carefully. We are no longer treating the mission as external interference. I need to sit with that sentence for a moment. External interference is a signal coming from outside the intended channel and disrupting it. The aviation office is saying, in institutional language, that the signal is no longer being classified as coming from outside. They are not saying where they now believe it is coming from. They are saying only that external is no longer the word they are using. It is now 12:58 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m., Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. I want to give you an operational report from a national broadcaster's engineering division because it arrived on the coordination line at 1:01 a.m., and it clarifies what the desk has been observing on its own carrier. The engineering division of a national broadcaster with facilities on 3 continents reports that at 12:40 a.m. Pacific, an internal audit was completed on the outbound transmissions of 42 of its owned and operated stations. The audit was requested by the coordination channel following the 11:30 p.m. carrier co-occupancy note. The result of the audit, As read to us on the line, on all 42 of the audited outbound carriers, the secondary tone was present. The engineering division reports further that the secondary tone was present on the outbound side of the transmitter regardless of whether the station in question was broadcasting live programming, pre-recorded programming, or the station's silent overnight fill. The engineering division summary uses the phrase, "The secondary carrier is not conditional on our transmission." I want to be precise about what that means. Their stations, when broadcasting nothing at all, are still carrying the secondary tone on their outbound signal. Stations broadcasting silence are not silent. That is the finding. The engineering division has, at the end of the note, said that they are suspending an internal audit going forward because the audit is, in their phrase, no longer diagnostic. It is now 1:06 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. A verified operational report from an inland utility arrived on our line at 1:09 a.m., and I want to give it to you next, because it is the first report of the night in which the phenomenon has been observed on a system that is not, by any conventional understanding, a broadcast or communications infrastructure. A regional electric utility coordination office reports that in the last hour, dispatch operators at 3 separate substations have observed, on their standard status paging systems, a low continuous tone underneath the ordinary operational chatter. The paging systems are internal. They are not connected to any radio receiver. They are not connected to any broadcast antenna. They are connected only to the handsets of the operators and to a small number of remote terminals at the substations themselves. The tone is present. The tone matches in envelope and in the walking two-layer pattern described by the ridge callers, the signal that has been the subject of tonight's broadcast. The Utilities Coordination Office has said, in the note read to us on the line, that they are operating tonight under the assumption that the medium is no longer identifiable. That is the phrase. The medium is no longer identifiable. The tone is arriving on systems that are not receivers, on carriers that are not broadcasting, on circuits that are not tuned to anything. It is now 1:13 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m., Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to broadcast. A verified follow-up report from the same Regional Electrical Utility Coordination Office arrived at 1:17 a.m., and I want to give it to you because it extends a finding in a direction the desk did not expect. The follow-up note reports that in the last 30 minutes, low-voltage distribution telemetry, the signaling that reports the operating status of individual pole-mounted transformers back to utilities dispatch, has begun to carry the same two-layer walking pattern underneath its ordinary status data. The telemetry is a narrow-band digital channel. It is not designed to carry audio. It is not designed to carry a modulated tone. The utilities engineers, in the note read to us on the line, describe the telemetry channel as showing the pattern as a shape in the data rather than as a sound. I want to be careful with that phrasing. The pattern has moved off audio channels entirely at the utility level. It is present in the utility status data as a structural feature. The utility has not adjusted its dispatch procedures. The utility has issued no advisory to the public. The utility has said, in the last sentence of the note, that they are operating tonight under an internal instruction to laud the pattern but not to act on it. That instruction, they state, will remain in force until further notice. It is now 1:22 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. I want to open the next update with a verified advisory because it is the most restrictive advisory issued tonight, and I want the exact shape of it in your ear. At 1:24 a.m. Pacific, a regional emergency management office issued an operational posture note to affected regions. The paraphrase as read to us. Members of the public in the affected regions are advised that effective immediately, receivers, broadcast stations, closed-loop communication systems, and utility paging infrastructure should be operated under the assumption that a second continuous signal is present on all such systems and may not be removable. The advisory instructs public and institutional operators not to attempt correction. It instructs them not to attempt isolation. It instructs them to, in the phrase used, continue ordinary operation, with the secondary carrier understood as present. I want you to sit with that instruction for a moment. Officials are, at this hour, not asking anyone to fix a phenomenon. They are asking everyone to operate as though it is now part of the environment. This is not the language of a temporary condition. It is now 1:29 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. I want to be transparent with you about a small correction to something the desk said earlier tonight. At 10:16 p.m., I described the correction attempt on the coastal receiver as showing that the signal was not removable from a receiver already carrying it. At the time, I was careful to distinguish that from the signal spreading. In light of the utility report at 1:13 a.m., the telemetry follow-up at 1:22 a.m., and the advisory just relayed, the desk considers that distinction no longer useful. The signal is on systems that were never receivers. It is on carriers that were never tuned to it. It is in data channels that were never designed to carry sound at all. The desk is not going to keep describing the phenomenon as something that spreads. Officials at this hour are not describing it that way either. The current institutional phrasing is present on all systems within the effective perimeter at stable amplitude. The word spread implied a boundary that is not, at this hour, observable. It is now 1:33 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. I want to describe, quickly and without drama, what the engineer's monitoring rack is showing at this update, because I promised you earlier I will be honest about it. The secondary carrier is now, by the engineer's log, running at slightly higher amplitude than the KQWL carrier. I want to be careful with what that means for you as a listener. It does not mean this broadcast is failing. It means the balance in the room has shifted. You may, from this point in the broadcast forward, notice the second layer more clearly underneath my voice. I am not going to stop broadcasting. Officials have not instructed us to. The advisory at 1:24 a.m. instructs us to continue ordinary operation with the secondary carrier understood as present. That is what the desk intends to do. It is now 1:37 a.m. Pacific. A verified report from a National Signals Laboratory arriving on our line at 1:39 a.m. updates the earlier analysis. The paraphrase, as read to us, the walking two-layer pattern, as has been reported from independent listening posts on multiple continents in the last 2 hours, is not, in the laboratory's current assessment, elaborating further. The pattern has, in their phrase, reached its shape. It is no longer adding structure. It is repeating, at long intervals, the shape it has settled into. The 1917 reference, when aligned with the shape now present, no longer fits as a first half. The laboratory has said this plainly. The 1917 signal, they state, is not part of the pattern any longer. The pattern has, in their phrase, moved past it. I am passing that along as received. The desk does not know what to do with that phrase either. It is now 1:44 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. We are continuing to broadcast. I want to give you the last verified institutional statement of the night, because it arrived on the coordination line at 1:47 a.m., and it is a statement that closes the desk's active review posture on this phenomenon. I am going to read the paraphrase carefully. A regional emergency management office reports that, as of 1:45 a.m. Pacific, the phenomenon has been reclassified from under active review to stable at full intensity, standing condition. The office states that further corrective action is not, at this time, planned. The office states that public and institutional operators should operate under the assumption that the secondary carrier is, in the phrase used, a permanent feature of the operating environment. The office states that no further advisories on the phenomenon are, at this time, anticipated. Ordinary bulletins from the office will, going forward, be issued with the understanding that the secondary carrier is present underneath them. I want to be honest about what has just been said, because the shape of it is not accidental. The office is not, in this statement, telling you what the signal is. The office is telling you that no one is going to tell you what the signal is. The office is telling you that the question is closed, not because it has been answered, but because it is no longer being asked. That is what standing condition means in institutional language. It means no further review. It is now 1:52 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. A verified operational report from the coordination desk arrived at 1:55 a.m., and I want to give it to you because it is the first field instrumentation report on the phenomenon at its settled state. A second field team, dispatched at 12:40 a.m. Pacific to a listening post south of the northern jetty and equipped for instrumentation only, no live radio contact required, completed its measurement pass and returned to its coordination point at 1:48 a.m. The team's instruments, as read to us on the line, logged the secondary carrier at a stable amplitude, at a fixed offset from the primary carrier of any station in the audit range, and with a walking two-layer pattern identical within measurement tolerance to the pattern reported by callers on the ridge earlier tonight. The team reports one further finding I want to relay carefully. The instrumentation, when powered off at the end of the measurement pass and packed into its carrying case, continued to log the secondary carrier for approximately 4 minutes after shutdown at diminishing amplitude before the log went quiet. The team's summary note, as read to us, the instruments took a moment to stop hearing it. I am passing that along as received. The desk considers the phrase precise. It is now 2 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Cold Harbor Emergency Relay Network. A caller from a farmhouse near the county line. The same farmhouse we have heard from twice tonight, the one with the grandfather's shortwave in the barn, reports that both radios in her house have, in the last 20 minutes, gone quiet. She states this carefully because she does not want to overstate it. She states the tone has not stopped. She states the tone has, in her phrase, settled. She states it is still present. She states she can still hear it if she listens for it. She states she is no longer hearing it without listening for it. She states she does not know whether that is because the tone has grown quieter or because her ear has stopped noticing it. We cannot confirm the account. The desk has, in the last 30 minutes, logged 41 similar call reports along the coast and in the interior. 41 is not a number I would ordinarily read on air. I am reading it because it is a number of households in the last half hour that have described the phenomenon as no longer sitting on top of ordinary hearing. It is now 2:05 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. A caller from an interior town in the eastern part of the state, a location the desk has not yet heard from tonight, while inland, east of any confirmed listening post from the earlier hours, reports that at approximately 1:30 a.m. Pacific, the standard clock radio on her nightstand and the standard clock radio on her husband's nightstand, both switched off at the wall, began producing the two-layer walking pattern at low volume. She states the pattern was present for approximately 20 minutes at that low volume. She states in the last 10 minutes it has, in her phrase, gone under the floor of the room. She states she can still hear it. She states she is not sure her husband can. She states she does not know how to describe the difference. We cannot confirm the account. The desk considers the report significant because it is the first caller summary tonight from that part of the interior, and because it describes the same settling behavior the ridge callers and the county line caller have described on the same rough timeline without prompting. The desk is going to stop at this update, reading the interior as a separate region. It is now 2:10 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m. Coal Harbor Emergency Relay Network. I want to close this broadcast with a few things I owe you as a listener. I want to be careful with them because I have been at this desk for a long time tonight, and the language, my language, has moved in ways I did not fully control. The signal that returned tonight on a frequency that had been quiet since November 1917 is not, by any institutional account I have been able to relay to you, a signal from 1917. It is not, by the National Signals Laboratory's most recent statement, connected to that earlier transmission at all any longer. The frequency was the door. What came through, it is not the war. That is the finding tonight, and I am giving it to you flat, because I would rather you carry it home in plain language than in mine. The signal is present on this station's carrier. It is present on the outbound side of transmitters on 3 continents. It is present on closed intercom loops, on utility paging systems, on ship-to-shore hard lines, and on low-voltage distribution telemetry that was never designed to carry a sound. It is, as of 1:45 a.m. Pacific, a standing condition of the operating environment. It is not going to be corrected. It is not going to be explained. Officials are not going to name it. The desk is not going to name it either, because that is not what this desk does. The field team on the northern jetty has not been reached. The coordination desk is not, At this hour, calling them missing. They are calling them not currently addressable. I want you to hear that phrase, because it is the phrase institutional language uses when the question has become the same kind of question as the signal itself. It is now 2:14 a.m. Pacific. This is KQWL 1620 a.m., Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. The engineers monitoring rack shows both carriers at this update running at matched amplitude. My voice is one of them. The other one has been present in this room, and in yours, for 6 hours and 33 minutes. It has stopped elaborating. It has settled into its shape. It is not going to leave. You will, in the days ahead, hear it less. That will not be because it is gone. It will be because your ear has, in the phrase the Ridge caller used, stopped noticing it without being asked to. That is the shape a standing condition takes. That is what officials mean when they use the word. There is no final advisory tonight beyond the one issued at 1:24 a.m. Continue ordinary operation. The secondary carrier is understood as present. Receivers currently producing the tone should not be corrected. Receivers not currently producing the tone should not be introduced. The perimeter has not been redrawn, because the perimeter has, at this hour, no observable boundary. The desk is going to continue broadcasting for as long as the desk is one of the two things you can hear on this frequency. That is the only promise the desk is in a position to make. Remain within the perimeter. This is KQWL 1620 a.m., Cole Harbor Emergency Relay Network. It is now 2:20 a.m. Pacific. The broadcast continues.